Season 31 of Diablo 3 is here, and I'm going to show you how to succeed as a demon hunter using the Natalya spike trap build. If you don't know this build, it's generally seen as one of the best demon hunter builds that money can buy, I guess. And it basically works around using spike traps, of course, with the Natalya gear set, which works really well with both spike traps and Caltrops. It is a bit slower than some other builds, which personally is a downside for me, but a lot of people love this. It's got really good burst damage and really good sustained damage as well. Very good sustained damage. So let's have a look at the skills we're going to be taking to start off, and then we're going to go through it, hopefully with no information overload. First of all, of course, we're taking Spike Trap with Custom Trigger, a deadly trap that explodes when hatred is generated. So what Custom Trigger is it means that your hatred generators will now actually detonate the traps. Hatred generators then being evasive fire in this build. Fire at 3 enemies, increase your armor if enemies are too close. Basically then you can see here, we can put down these different spike traps and we can put down a lot of them. And the way the build's going to work is we can activate them and pull them in to our Caltrops as well. And you can see here, they're going to detonate when I use my evasive fire, obviously using my hatred generator. And then we've got our discipline as well. This is also going to be renewed really quickly. So even though the spike trap part of this is quite slow mover, we can get really high mobility when we need, because we're going to be regenerating a lot of discipline quite quickly. As with a lot of Demon Hunter builds, we're going with Vengeance. We're going to be trying to get this on basically no cooldown and therefore consistent uptime. It's a great cooldown that gives you 40% increased damage when it is up, and therefore having it up as much as possible is evidently very, very important. We also are using the Dark Heart rune, meaning that when we use this cooldown, we're going to actually reduce all damage that we take. Because of the 2-set bonus we're getting on our gear, which I'll go through shortly, things like Smokescreen, Shadow Power, and Caltrops are actually going to be really quickly dispensable due to the fact we're going to be getting discipline back. Smokescreen vanish from sight for a limited time, and it doesn't start to expire and cool down until afterwards, therefore meaning we have more uptime on it. Smokescreen is fantastic for getting out of a dodgy situation. Shadow Power with Gloom, reducing damage taken while Shadow Power is active, and you gain life, basically leech, when you deal damage when this is up. And of course, Caltrops, placing a trap that slows enemies, gaining critical hit chance when standing in the trap. Now, the way this build works is that we are setting up a line of traps, generally quite firmly on top of each other when dealing with big elites. So it is actually quite a high chance that we will, in greater and greater rifts, higher and higher greater rifts, we will actually be standing in the trap, which is really, really good. Looking at the passive skills then, because of course our Caltrops are slowing, and things like that. We've got Cull the Weak, increasing damage against slowed enemies by 20%, no brainer there. Ambush, of course, is a great one. You deal 40% additional damage to enemies over 75% health, pretty self-explanatory there. Numbing traps, enemies you slow with your Caltrops and Spike Trap have their damage reduced by 25%. So when they step in those traps, it's also going to reduce the enemy's damage. Again, fits perfectly with the build. And Custom Engineering, increasing the duration of our... Oh, Season 31's begin! Who would have thought? Increase the duration of our Caltrops and Spike Traps by 100%, because of course they don't last forever. This gives us a lot better timing on these without having to worry, and increases the maximum number of your Spike Traps to 5. This is fantastic. We can actually increase this further with some other things in the build as well. So this is a really, really mandatory one on the Custom Engineering. If I move myself over here, then we can have a little gander at the gear. Of course, then, the set piece is going to be Natalya's Embrace, or Natalya's Vengeance, should I say. 2-set. Spike Traps deal 100% increased damage to enemies affected by Caltrops. Spike Trap now instantly refreshes charges on use, no longer costs resources, so it's free to use, and each detonation restores 2 discipline. So there's a few things we're getting out of here. 1, it's free to use. Secondly, it's going to be restoring discipline, which is our utility resource, meaning we can get out things like Caltrops and Smokescreen a lot quicker when we use them. And Spike Trap is dealing 100% increased damage, so double the damage to enemies affected by Caltrops. Hence why we're taking the Caltrops there, and we will be putting these down, which are going to cost discipline, remember. Hence why the 2-set is so fantastic with replenishing that discipline. So we can put down our Caltrops, then spam a load of Spike Traps on top of it, or vice versa. You can also set them up in a line, and it's going to do double the damage when they detonate, which is fantastic. The 4-set then is actually going to make the explosions of your spike traps blast your enemies towards your Caltrops, almost like a vacuum. Laying a spike trap is going to grant 75% damage reduction. Considering how close you may be, especially at the higher Greater Rift levels with this build, this is fantastic because you're kind of like kiting them around in a little circle or a little line like that, like trap, 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 bloop, trap, 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 bloop. That's you moving, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. The duration of this bonus is always equal to the number of already laid traps in seconds, and we're going to be getting out as many traps as possible, therefore increasing this bonus. Spike trap deals 10 gajillion increased percent damage, and each consecutive explosion from the detonated chain reaction will deal 25% more damage than the previous blast. Again, then stacking up those spike traps to increase the detonation chain reaction effect on the 6th set. On the weapon, we're going with Dawn, reducing the cooldown of Vengeance by 65%. This is massive. This means that we only need, if you have a perfect Dawn, I think it's 33% memory serving to get a complete uptime on your Vengeance. And on the other offhand, the Demon's Demise. Each blast from Spike Trap will deal damage to all enemies again after 1 second and deals 200% increased damage. Again, a no-brainer on that one, making our Spike Traps even more formidable than they already were with the Natalya's Vengeance set piece there. On the other ring slot, because remember, Natalya is actually a ring for the set as well. So the other ring slot and the neck, we're actually going for the Endless Walk set. While moving, damage taken is reduced by up to 50%, and while standing still, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%. This is really good because we can place those spike traps, stand still, boom, we've detonated them and done even more damage. When we're moving and placing those traps, etc., and sort of, positioning ourselves, whatever the hell we're doing, we're going to be taking less damage, which is generally going to be the portion where you're actually setting up the trap. On the waist and wrists, it's going to be the Guardian's Aversion, which is the Guardian's Jeopardy set. 2 set. Your melee damage reduction is increased by 1% per 100 base vitality from items. Your missile damage reduction is increased by 1% from other stats. And on the free set, you gain 100% additional of your base strength, dex, intelligence and vitality attributes from equipped items. Again, it's just a good all-round set, really, increasing defensives and also offensive stats from all of our other stats that we already have. And then lastly, on the head and shoulders, it's the Orgul's Authority, damage dealt taken, reduced by 15%, damage dealt increased by 30%. So taken is reduced by 15, the damage we're dealing out increased by 30%. Free set reduces the damage we take from elites by 30 and increases the damage we do to elites by 30%. Again, great all-rounder there. Again, if we look at the gems we're putting in, Bane of the Stricken, each attack you make against an enemy increases the damage it takes from you, gaining a massive increased damage against Rift Guardians, self-explanatory on that one, just basically more damage. We've got the Esoteric Alteration, gain 60% non-physical damage reduction. While below half-life, your resistances to cold, fire, lightning, poison, arcane are increased by 75%. And Bane of the Trapped, increasing damage against enemies under the effect of control impairing effects. This is fantastic because of our Caltrops skill, remember, that is going to be slowing our enemies. And gain an aura that reduces the movement speed of enemies within 15 yards by 30%. Also then, because of the fact that we are going to be in such close range, especially at the higher levels, this is going to be fantastic. At reducing the movement speed, both when in the Caltrops and when they're also just near us as well, when we're sort of slowly kiting the enemies around. If we look at the rest of the gear, which is what we're putting in the Kunai's Cube, again, with this Demon Hunter build, as it seems with a lot this season, we're just using it as default. So if you're not aware, in Season 31 of Diablo 3, what you can basically do is you can swap around the items in Kunai's Cube, meaning you can have all 3 amulets or rings, all 3 weapons, all 3 armor, mix and match. However, the best build for this set is actually going to be for Demon Hunters, the standard of 1 ring, 1 armor piece and 1 weapon. The cannon or the Channon bolter on the weapon then, your spike traps lure enemies to them and deal 200% increased damage. Enemies may be taunted once every 10 seconds. So again, it's pulling your enemies in to the spike traps. Don't forget then that with our Natalya's Vengeance set on the Demon Hunter, we are actually going to be, on the 4 set, having our spike trap explosions blasting effect enemies towards the nearest Caltrops. So it's all about pulling the enemies in where we want them as well, and that is going to go the same on the Kunai's Cube weapon. On the Armor, it's Tragul's coils. Spike traps gain the scatter rune, are deployed twice as fast and deal 2% increased damage. Again, just massively increasing the spike trap damage we're doing. And then on the ring, we're using the Ring of Royal Grandeur, reducing the number of items needed by set bonuses by 1. If you don't know how to get this, do Season 1, Act 1, not Season 1, can't go back in time, Act 1 bounties. You can get it from Act 4 as well, but because that has a greater pool of loot that you can actually get items from, the Act 1 has less pool of items, therefore meaning a higher chance of actually getting a Ring of Royal Grandeur to then transmute in Kunai's Q. Reduces the number of set items needed by 1, therefore we only need 5 items for Natalya's, and the same on the Guardian's Jeopardy, and also the Orgild's Authority sets. We only need 2 items, not 3, to get the free set bonus, which is why it works so well with Natalya's having a ring, because we can really swap out and get in some really interesting sets on this gear. For the rest of the gear, it's going to be emeralds on the gems. Basically, they're just increasing crit damage on the weapons, etc. And for survivability, adding resistance of diamonds wherever we can. For the actual stat priority you're going to want to look to get on your gear, this is what I would follow. Now, I could go into a lot more depth about this, and maybe you want me to. Let me know in the comments below, because I'm new to doing Diablo guides. Do you want to see really, really in-depth information and deep dives into these builds? Or do you want to see a more sort of light touch and just kind of how it works? It's more beginner friendly, kind of like how I'm doing this guide today. Or would you like both? I really want to know your opinions on what kind of builds you'd like to see. Do you just want to see the S tier builds? Do you want to see all the different builds for each class each season? I'm really happy to do whatever you guys want, and I really want to know your feedback, as usually I actually do World of Warcraft guides, and I actually have a separate channel for that. And Diablo is a game I've been playing since I was about 8 years old. I've still got my Diablo 1 CD, so I wanted to do guides for these as well. And I really, like I said, kind of want to know what you guys actually want. And I will be doing Diablo 2, 3, 4 and Immortal, by the way. But anyway, the stat priority I would then say to get as your most important stats, offensively at least, is crit chance and crit damage, and then fire damage. 37% cooldown reduction. That is so that you can get perfect uptime on your Vengeance. Now, that is only if you have a Ancient Dawn that is perfect. If not, it's about 46%, somewhere around there, cooldown reduction to get your perfect uptime on Vengeance. Otherwise, there is going to be a little bit of a cooldown on there. And lastly, area damage, which is going to be affected by your spike traps, etc. Looking at what we're putting on your follower, we're going to choose the Templar, and the way we're going to skill it is by Heal and Loyalty, both healing spells there, Onslaught in the 3rd slot. This is going to cause enemies to take even further damage. And Guardian. It's a basically get out of jail free card, so that if you take a killing blow to yourself, you are brought back to life. Can only happen every now and then. It's on a big cooldown. Because of that long 2-minute cooldown, we are going to be looking at putting a lot of cooldown reduction on the Templar, including then something here that's really useful because of that. Enchanting Favour. It's a relic where basically your follower cannot die. If you don't know, when they die, they can't obviously use their skills, and therefore, if we do get a killing blow against us, the Templar isn't going to stop that happening. Not letting them die basically means then that Guardian is always going to be available, and that is a lot better. Looking at the gear then, we've got the Wall of Man, basically protects from some bones. On Thunder Fury, the weapon, it's really important that you try and get this for your Templar. It has a chance to hit with lightning, it bounces around to 5 targets, and it slows them. Therefore, with our Cull the Weak slowing passive effect that we've got, if you don't remember, it's this one, increases damage against slowed enemies by 20%. The Thunder Fury is going to, in an AoE basis, really help with that. We're putting strength on all the gems for the Templar, apart from the crown, just so it does more damage. Gloves of Worship, so that shrine effects last for 10 minutes. Emanates is basically where the effect on the follower's gear also affects you. So if you see that, it's really good. Another good one is Oculus Ring. It creates an area on the floor that if you stand in, you or the Templar, you'll do more damage. Of course, the Templar will actually activate this, but you can also stand in it. Really, really good for doing more damage. Nemesis Bracers. Shrines will spawn an enemy champion. So this basically means when you hit a Conduit Shrine or something like that, Protection Shrine, it will spawn a group of enemy champions, meaning when you kill them, you get obviously more globes for finishing your rifts quicker. Fantastic for farming. On the neck, it's the Flavor of Time, where pylon effects are going to last twice as long. And then, really interestingly, Leoric's Crown. This is because the effect of any gem you put into the Leoric's Crown is going to be doubled. And therefore, remember I said about the 120-second cooldown on Guardian? Well, we're going to want to put a diamond in here to reduce the cooldown of all skills by 12%. Therefore, reducing increasing how often we can get the Guardian effect. And of course, all the other skills on the Templar affecting onto us, which is really, really good for our survivability. Lastly, it's the homing pads on the shoulders. Normally, if you're trying to cast a portal and there's enemies attacking you, it'll interrupt it and you can't get back to town, which if you're in a bit of a dodgy situation could obviously be really quite, scary, especially if you're playing on hardcore. Well, this means that they won't actually interrupt you, and it's going to give you a protective babble that reduces damage taken while you're casting the portal. Again, emanates on their fantastic shoulders. What we're actually going to do then on our Paragon points in this order, of course, it won't be long until you actually get all of your Paragon points, but on the core, we're going to start off with movement speed, then do dexterity, and then vitality. If you feel like you need more maximum hatred, feel free, of course. I personally don't feel like it's needed, and therefore I normally just dump any more as much as I can into dex, and then vitality as I need it. On offensive, we're going to go for cooldown reduction, then critical hit chance, then critical hit damage, and then attack speed. On defense, it's first of all going to be all resistances, improving survivability, life, armor, and then life regen. And on utility, it's going to be area damage from our traps, pickup radius, then resource cost reduction. We don't really need it much in this build, and then life per hit. So the way it's basically going to work is that you can put down your spike traps, you can put them all on top of each other like this, and then leave your Caltrops down. I haven't actually got the set equipped, but it doesn't really matter. And then it's going to pull enemies in, and you can activate it, remember, with your generator like this, your Caltrops still staying here. Or another option you can do is basically laying them in, a row like this, and have it as like a chain reaction like that with your Caltrops as well, pulling them through the spike traps to actually, get closer. Of course, using your Vengeance, pretty much on cooldown as needed, using your shadow power and your smoke screen as defensives when you need. Regarding the altar in Tristram, this is the order. I recommend that you take these in, including potions at the bottom in 1, 2, 3, etc. But generally, you can kind of do this as and when you would like, depending how far you may get into it. And that's really it, guys. If you have enjoyed this guide, please let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a thumbs up. And if you're looking for other Diablo 3 Season 31 guides, there is a playlist here that is going to have all of the major guides for every single class for you. And don't forget as well, I will be doing Diablo 4 Season 4 guides when it's out, and some Diablo Immortal ones as well fairly shortly. Thanks for watching, and have fun in Season 31 of Diablo.